Hey everyone, it's the History Nerd back for another episode of the Ethiopia playthrough. So, Ialces, what's my opinion of America? Uh, Interesting question. I'm assuming you mean current day. Uh, Honestly, you're not far off with the corruption thing, but that's not to be. I mean, that's not a surprise. Uh, what you've got is an empire, for lack of a better word, that. Ooh. Yay. What do we want to steal from the Austrians? I'm thinking. Guilds looks pretty good. Looks pretty tempting. We can get trade posts, which means, yes, indeed, we can make use of all the freaking tundra we've got up here. The only time I religiously build trade posts is on tundra, because you can't build anything else. So what you've got with America is you've got corruption, which comes from success. I mean, it's been the world power for pretty much a century. Well, 60 years, 70 years, 60 to 70 years. Yeah. I mean, as far as empires go, they're not that bad. They're frustrating as hell. Uh, because, they're. It's the first time in a long time you get an empire that isn't allowed to be an empire because of its founding principles. And I think there's an issue rectifying that, and how you strike the balance between being a global empire, but founded on the principles that are counter to imperialism. And you can see these conflicts starting up with things like the Monroe Doctrine, way back in the 19th century, and it's going to continue to this day. I mean, it's going to continue. It's going to continue forever, or at least as long as the United States stays stays as the dominant power based on principles of freedom and liberty. And it's because that's a complicated thing to rectify. Empires, by their very nature, aren't really freedom. They don't really encourage freedom. But you've got now an empire that's founded on those principles. So the first big tough question is, how do you export that? Because every empire needs to export what makes it imperial. I mean, the Romans did it. Everybody does it. Everybody who's in a position of power does it because they want to share the success. And, the more people are like you, the less conflict will rise out of it. So, yeah. But how do you convince people that these values are worth it? I mean, you've got massive segments of the population that their history, individual freedoms that Western nations today hold so unique and dear to themselves, they're kind of uniquely Western, in a way. If you look back at the history of the Greek city-states, for instance, and the rise of Athenian democracy, that's a pretty unique situation historically. You don't usually see ideas like that come because they're not advantageous to the way most human societies are set up throughout history. So it's a very unique thing. And we're going to send him up there and just keep him, because we're going to have to do some conversions later. This is a really tough question. Because it's easy to point to the current state of America and say, well, you know, they're horrible, they're corrupt, they're going around, you know, starting wars everywhere and all these other things. But you have to remember the geopolitical position that they're in. And for instance, looking at the Empire of Great Britain, you had a very jingoistic society, a society very focused on warfare, and they were okay with it. They were okay with colonial warfare, which really turned out well because, you know, they were really good at it. And, you know, Britain wouldn't have become the empire that they were if their population wasn't okay with what they did. Now, with America, this is you know, one of the first times. Yes, steel. That'll give us a nice edge. How much does it cost to upgrade them? 100. Oh, you're gonna get it, Austria. So what you've got with America is you've got an empire that, by its founding principles, can't really be an empire, and so now you've got to you've got to figure out a way to strike a balance that isn't going to piss your population off, but that's still going to allow you to keep your position geopolitically. Because during the Cold War, there was always an enemy, and this allowed for an imperial mentality to sort of develop. Things were okay as long as the communists weren't winning. But then when the communists lost, you know, there went from being 2 empires to 1. And you didn't have that same threat of the evil communist empire. And they weren't evil. I mean, you know, using terminology of the times, the evil communist empire. The Soviet Union wasn't really any more evil than the United States. But with them being locked in a global Cold War, it enabled both of them to be able to exert their power and influence. Hello, England.
We are pleased to meet you.
And we will trade you crabs for furs. Oh, thank you. So yes, with the Cold War, you had societies that were able to act like act imperial in their interactions with the world. And now, since the fall of the wall, you don't have that. You've got the one superpower. And for a while, things were okay. But, you know, now, the state of the world, we're seeing a lot more potential empires rising. First on that list is China. We've also got Brazil, you know, the BRIC countries, Russia to an extent, India, you know, all over the world, there's...
Would you be interested in a trade agreement?
Indeed, we would. There's more spheres of influence being generated. During the Cold War, you had 2. Now you've got 1, which is the old order, which is, you know, Western world or America. And now you're getting more options. I mean, we're seeing just recently the Chinese committing to what was it, like 20, 20 billion in aid for Africa. I mean, it's like a scramble for Africa all over again. Um, and if you're kind of sketchy on history, Scramble for Africa is or was the massive colonial rush in the late 19th century to divide Africa up between all the colonial powers. So we've got China going in there now, and initially China's dealings with Africa really only benefited China, and the Africans resented that with good reason. It was for them. It was colonialism all over again. So China's coming out now. They're saying, "Look, okay, yeah, we realize that. We're going to do things differently this time, and we're going to make sure that not only China benefits from this agreement, but Africa as well." I mean, that's just one example of expanding influences throughout the world, and the United States has to has to not rectify that. I'm saying that word an awful lot today. Has to figure out how to deal with that, while holding true to its values and acting, in the imperial manner. And so there's a lot of difficulty with that, and I think it's as much as politically the United States angers me. I don't know what else they could be doing, given their position. Uh, you know, you could say, well, why don't they just retreat from being the world empire and just go back and focus on their own issues? And I mean, really, that might be the best thing for them to do, but that would be a first in history. And I don't I don't blame them for not doing it, because it's just really really tricky. The world right now is a very interesting time. And what have you got? Ooh, do I have anything to give to you? I don't. It's too bad. Um, I don't think. Yeah, probably that might be a good idea. I don't think it's as clear cut as just they're corrupt and yeah, I don't know. It's a complicated question, because it's such, yeah, it's a difficult time, and definitely a lot of what they do concerns me. A lot of what's going on right now really is concerning. Uh, but I can understand it. Yeah, that's where I'm going to leave that. So hopefully that answered your question. Probably didn't, and for that I certainly, that's a good question though. And I'm a damn atheist. Yeah. So, going on to Matt. Absolutely, medieval sieges were an absolutely horrible place to be and to have to fight in. I mean, I remember in one of my Crusades courses, just mind-boggling. You'd be sitting there thinking, okay, well, probably it's bad for the attacker or for the defender, because they're stuck in a walled-up city. More often than not, it was both. Both sides had it incredibly bad during these types of conflicts, and the attrition rates were disgusting, absolutely disgusting. Excuse me. But yeah, certainly glad I won't ever have to be participating in a medieval siege. 104, that sounds stupid. I hope you've got some sort of air conditioning because that's necessary for heat like that. That's ridiculous. And unfortunately, medieval Asian history, kind of another dark spot for me. I'm discovering I've got quite a lot of those. Kind of embarrassing. Um, but in some brief lookings at Wikipedia, to at least get some sort of a, even if poorly educated opinion on this question, the Tang Empire looks really, really interesting. I'm gonna have to do some more reading about those guys. I mean, I think one of the largest empires ever. If you take a look at their territory on the map, it's a massive amount considering the time frame. I think they had something around 80 to 100 million subjects. Like that's insane for 7th century. That's insane. How did they do that? And yeah, like I don't know enough about Asian history. The one history professor who taught Asian studies or Asian courses at my university was notoriously horrible, so I avoided classes with him like the plague. And looking just briefly at the stuff that I did, that was a mistake. Well, maybe not. I mean, the guy was really a bad prof, but I need to expand my knowledge of that time frame because it looks really interesting, and that geographic area in general is just really, really intriguing. Yeah, sure, why not? One of the time frames that I would like to know more about as well. Um, I did some reading into it. Yay, we got a special agent for my nationalism class. But I'd really like to learn more about 19th century China. I think that is a really interesting time period where you've got this very old and very storied and very long-lived empire having to deal with, yeah, physics, measure, all these upstarts from the West. You know, not just kind of meddling in the area, but full-on getting involved. I mean, the two opium wars that Britain fought with China, and then the occupation of Hong Kong. Really want to know more about that time period in Asia. Really, I want to know more about every time period in Asia. Like I say, it's kind of a dark period for me, and yeah, it shouldn't be. That is a spectacularly interesting time. Wonderful. Am I ever glad I moved that catapult there? Erg. Get down there. So here we go, round 2 of horrible, atrocious warfare. Just throw men at the walls. Although there aren't any walls, so that's good. These people are Ethiopian. They should want to be ruled by Ethiopia. Yep, there's something Civ could do better. Is get over there. I guess we should probably utilize that source of iron. If you know a culture is sieging a recently conquered city that shares the same culture, it would be just be nice if you got a little bit of a combat bonus in that. There we go. It should fall to us next turn. Meanwhile, there's Elizabeth just churning the wonders out. 'Cause apparently she doesn't have to fight a stupid war with stupid Austrians. There we go. Okay, how about peace?
Ah, ihr seid.
Okay. This little tundra expansion should hopefully get us quite a bit of money.
Ich sehe, ihr bewundert.
And there we go. I will just build a trebuchet. Oh no, not there. Whew, definitely not there. Here. Trebuchet, trebuchet. There we go. Build one of them. And just like that, everything's back to normal.
The only
What do we... Probably ironworks. Another interesting time, or another period of time that I'm interested in Asian history is 19th century Japan and the modernization that went on there. But what kind of interests me more is Japan in the early 20th century and the development of their empire. And Western opposition to it. This is something that's always fascinated me, is that Japan, when they decided to westernize, I shouldn't have used the word modernized, westernized, they decided to take the best aspects, or not the best aspects, take the best, well, just get advisors from the best countries for the right areas. That's the way to put that. So, politically, they modeled themselves after Great Britain. Economically, they modeled themselves after the United States. And militarily, they modeled themselves after Prussia. And that, in itself, really, really fascinates me. That was the approach they took. I mean, that's really cool. You can see how that would... That's kind of an interesting little human experiment there, is taking... the advancements of, or the best of a culture, and trying to apply more than one cultural boost, I guess, to a country. So going, fully open market system of the United States. I'm a fan of constitutional monarchs, and I'm a fan of the Westminster system. So, in my humble opinion, taking the best political system the West had to offer, followed up by undoubtedly the best... No. Whew. The best military, which was definitely the Prussian military. Those guys were badass. And developing a society out of that, really, really cool. And then the West's reaction, which, I mean, it smacks of Western imperialism and Western superiority complexes. But the fact that Japan followed precisely the Western model for building an empire with its actions, getting the colonies in Korea. Oh, we're just racking up the free tech. This is great.
And
Bring it, Austria. We'll take you on yet again. Uh, because like Japan did a really, really good job of following the classic imperial model, and at every turn, the West was like, "Whoa, you can't do this, no." And so it's really no wonder that the militant imperial Japan of the early to mid 20th century arose, because eventually they just didn't have an option. They yeah, they were getting their empire no matter what anybody said, and they had the window to do it. That was the amazing thing, is that being one of the first countries in Asia to westernize, they put themselves at a massive advantage. You look at the Russian Japanese War in 1905. I mean, the Imperial Japanese fleet decimated the Russian fleet. Now, the Russians aren't known for having a good fleet, but in Western eyes, they're still a Western country. And here was a non-Western country just kicking the crap out of a Western one. It's a really, really interesting time frame that I'd also like to know more about.
the press is the best instrument for enlightening the mind of man.
But of course, to get a good understanding of that, you have to understand. Basically, my view of history is to get an understanding of whatever period in time you're looking at that you're interested in. So, for example, like, let's say you're interested in the Crusades. So you're going to have to get an understanding of not just Western medieval history. You're going to need to get an understanding of the Byzantine Empire's history. You're going to need to get an understanding of Roman history, and what caused Rome to fall. Why did the East remain? What are the dynamics going on there? You're going to need to get an understanding of Arabian history. You're going to need to get an understanding not just of Muslim history, but of Arabian history. You're going to need to understand where all those things came from. Without getting the background, you're never going to fully understand what you're looking at, which is one of the things that baffles me when you do history, just the way it's split up, and the focus on certain regions and certain aspects. You need a broad understanding of how people got to where they are before you can even start looking at it. That's my opinion of history there. While I'm on my soapbox today. So, the plan is keep enough of a military deterrent down south here to keep Austria wherever Austria is and doing whatever they're doing. Probably all this spying is pissing them off and might drive us into another war. I'm not all that worried about that. I guess I should be, considering how poorly the last war went, but I think I can prepare myself for it a little bit better. Hopefully, anyway. And, need another trade post. I keep forgetting about that iron source, just all over the map. Yeah, just keep myself prepared for any more military conflict with Austria, and...
I have some information.
Thank you. From there, just sort of keep my position. Keep building. Keep making friends. And eventually we'll get some sort of non-violent victory. I'm hoping anyway. Or we'll go down on a ball of flames. One of those two options. And we hardly like to smile. Ooh, we'll just finish that on up. Go get that mine built. We'll just leave you be. I'm still baffled by that 104. That's insane. I did the conversion because I'm used to Celsius. That's almost 40 degrees Celsius. That's ridiculous. It was like 22 today, and that was hitting my, like, maximum temperature value. I don't know what that is. That might be 70 or 80 in Fahrenheit. Not 100% sure. But that's my upper threshold. That's when I've still got the AC just cranked. And people say they like that heat. I don't understand that. How can you like being uncomfortable and sweaty? I mean, people, like, they go out of their way to vacation in places like that. I mean, they're nice. Places like that are generally very beautiful. They're too freaking hot to enjoy. And now what? Hmm. 21% culture in all cities. That might be helpful. I'll go with a printing press instead, though. And we might as well build up some sort of navy. Finish scouting this continent out. I'm fairly certain it's going to end just south of Austria. Why the AI would put two civilizations that close to each other, I have no idea. It's rude. But they did. We can trade crab now. There we go. No. How? How did you trade all those away? Oh, that's too bad. They have spices. There could have been spicy crab. And a trade post. Okay. I think that's the most trade posts I've ever built in a single Civ game. That's impressive. There's really not much else to do. I don't even know how I got so many workers. I must have been capturing or something. Keep going. Chances are very good this is just a tiny little island. In which case I will conquer Austria, because that just makes sense. But then that's it. No more conquering. Okay, well they could go and attack Lebanon if they needed space. Or Lisbon. Lebanon. Little slip there. theater. Industrial age already? Holy crap! We are behind. Okay. And we'll just let you stay there. Yay, Golden Age! Oh, and in fact, my capital city is getting close to starvation level. I doubt you will, but how about
Ah, ihr seid's.
we open some borders up?
Ihr sagtet?
What do you want for it? Silver. My only source of silver. That's rude. I'll give you crab. Come on, let me give you crabs. Propose?
Ich
Okay.
stimme zu.
And probably a granary. Yeah, getting pretty close to starvation levels. So, there's a question for my viewers. Should I start starving Addis Ababa? Yeah, that's pretty much the end of that question. Should I start starving them? Is it time to start getting Stalinistic on these guys? I don't know how I'm gonna starve my Arctic cities, to be honest with you guys. I don't know how to do that at all. We'll just let you wait for a turn. Oh, yeah! Look at that.
Die Welt ist zum Erbarmen. Keine Schönheit mehr darin und keine Weisheit. Fast bin ich froh, dass ich gehe.
Oh, we agreed to end it. Oh, we're gonna look like jerks. I really should have made better attention. Paid better attention. That's to be expected. And is there anything up here we can see? Not really. Might be something out there, but I doubt it. Yeah, we're just gonna go back and forth. Show me something. No, there's really nothing. Nothing up there. These Viennese have got to be slightly confused as to what's going on. What an interesting spot for a city-state. I'll let you just sleep there. And I think that's where I'm going to end the video today. So hopefully I haven't offended too many of you. If I have, apologies, but yeah, I guess that kind of happens. So yeah, thumbs up if you've enjoyed this. Leave your comments, questions, concerns, musings, questions. 2 questions. Yeah, leave more questions. Discussion topics, points of interest, complaints if I've offended you. And yeah, thank you guys very much for watching. We'll see you next time.